Welcome to Let's Talk Kashrus. Today we are joined by Rabbi Shalom Fishbane, Kashrus Administrator of the Chicago Rabbinical Council and Executive Director of ACO, the Association of Kashrus Organizations. Thank you, Rabbi Fishbane. It's a true honor to have you here.
Thank you, Rabbi Yitzchok.
For this discussion.
Yes.
On behalf of the Kashrus Awareness Project, a wonderful undertaking of a group of concerned and caring community members whose goal is to make it easier for people to keep kashrus properly and to inform, to educate.
I must tell you, this is music to our ears, us and kashrus, because we can't do this alone. You know, we spend our day doing kashrus, and boy, does it take a lot to really understand kashrus. You know, the old days, you just needed to know your Yeridea. Today, psychology, engineering, everything, food science, but we can only be a resource to people like yourself and Rabbanim and consumers that just want to learn more. And what a pleasure to talk to you and maybe give you some insights so that people can continue to keep kashrus to the highest level, because that's really what we want.
Right.
We want to be able to be klei kodesh, that our bodies will have kedusha, there will be no timtum alev, so that we can have a connection to the Rabbanu Shalom. That's our role here, and thank you for having me.
Thank you. Now, as much as the world has changed in terms of technology, it's much easier to get messages out today because there are so many different platforms and mediums to do so. Are you finding over the last 2 decades that it's easier, or is it actually harder because there's so many conflicting messages and things go out, some are authorized, some are not authorized. You know, people don't even know what's real and what's not anymore. Are you finding that there's more confusion?
Yes, great question. Yes, it is more confusing, and because of that, people have kind of turned off that the way it used to be. People are much more sensitive and looking and checking. You know, I grew up out of town. Out of town, you always looked at labels, you always looked into it because you didn't know. So 2 things are happening, and that's a great point. The more kashrus alerts and whatnot are going out there, people are beginning to tune out and just focus on what they know. And secondly, the mass abundance of kosher products has almost gotten to the point where I like to say with the Erev. What's an Erev? You ask someone that lives in the tri-state mostly, they know about it, they learned about it in school, but it's not so negeya. It's not day to day. The more out of town you go, you have to know, on Shabbos, on Mol, you go visit someone in Lakewood, so you know that, okay, this Shabbos we don't have to worry about caring. So it's really, those 2 things have brought our success has actually now been an issue, and that we have to go back to where people become more conscientious about kashrus.
And I think as well, in addition to the just flood of information that's coming out, and like you said, people tune out, there's also our more sophisticated palates. People are eating differently, they're celebrating differently, they're vacationing differently. Incredible. Everything about the way we eat has changed, right? You'd agree with it.
It's so true. Again, it used to be you wanted to maybe celebrate, you went to a brick and mortar establishment that had a good hechsher, and that was it. What's happened now is that brick and mortar establishment is coming to us, but without the hechsher. So all of these things, whether it's the kedushim, the private chefs on vacation, going to the Orlando for Pesach. In other words, we're doing the same thing. We upped it greatly in our palate, but it's coming to us, but it's missing that little piece, and that is a very good established kashrus system. And that's what I think we should explore, and how to tweak that to where we get back to where everybody's keeping kashrus to the highest level.
But I just want to assure our viewers that as complex as it is, and as much as things have changed, and it is more quote-unquote difficult than it used to be because of the various variables, but in your mind and in other kashrus professionals' minds, it is possible to keep kashrus, on the highest level of dikduk and do it properly. It's just about being aware, being educated, and asking the right questions, right? Is that true?
1,000%. Of course, there will be some times you'll have to say no. We can't go to the nicest hotel there is and eat everything on the menu at all times. There will be times where we have to turn away, but absolutely, it could be done. We just have to set up the perimeter to have it done in the right way, but absolutely.
And asking questions is
Asking
probably the
questions.
number one thing, right?
Asking
Just
questions.
ask.
Just
Is
ask.
it kosher? Do you have a mashgiach? Where's the food from? Basic questions. That's the starting point,
That's
would you
the
say?
starting point. And we get many calls. Listen, I'm going to this and this place. What should I ask? What I shouldn't ask? And many times they eat differently once they know the answers, where the cheeses are coming from. That's a big one, by the way, especially in our Yisrael, the hotels, the cheeses.
Really?
Yeah, because, the fancier the hotel, the fancier the cheese, the harder it is to make it kosher. If you understand the cheese making process, it doesn't just start one day where somebody throws in a piece of rennet and they make fancy cheese. It starts way back. Where did it start from? That's one type of thing. Certainly meat and whatnot, but there's ways to do it. There's definitely ways to do it. And we, as a Kashrus agency, act as a resource to help people. But certainly, you can definitely enjoy what HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us and do it in the right way, as long as you know.
Well, that's an encouraging piece of information, and our hope is that with this series of conversations about kashrus, and each segment will hopefully tackle one or more of specific kashrus topics, we're gonna feel the feedback from the Hamoinam, that they're going to be appreciative, that they're getting it from an authoritative source such as yourself, someone who's been in the kashrus industry literally for decades. You've flown all around the world. You've been on meetings with Gedolei Torah, with consummate kashrus professionals. You've seen everything,
Right.
and we're grateful to you.
Thank you.
That you're willing to share that information and make yourself available. And the truth is, we're very grateful, and I think it's appropriate to say so, to all
appreciate
kashrus organizations, the CRC and others around the globe, who dedicate themselves to making sure that we're eating, betachlis hahider, on the highest level of kashrus, and it involves a tremendous amount of sacrifice that probably most regular people like myself don't even know about.